Welcome to Pivot Pointers. This is Midlife Unscripted with Terry and Mary Beth. And this is where we talk about everything associated with midlife, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I think I wanted to start off today, Mary Beth, by talking about if you ever wonder why your emotions sometimes feel like they're running the show. In other words, it sometimes feel like the tail is wagging the dog, that our emotions are the ones that are kind of directing our lives as opposed to actually us directing our lives and our emotions following. What do you think? That's kind of what I want to talk about.
That's a great topic. I was going to say we've all could come up with examples of seeing this out in public, road rage, an overwhelmed mother in the grocery store. You can just name it. A frazzled
Couple
boss
at the other table.
Yeah,
Yes, right.
yeah. So
Right.
lots of examples. I can name many examples where I have let my emotions go over the top. So yes, I don't think people understand how important this is, and also how much control. I've heard people say, like, I can't help it. I just can't help it. That's what happens to me. I've heard my husband say it. I'm just angry. It just happens. And I was like, no, you do have more
Right.
control than you think you do. So that's kind of what we want to talk about today.
Right. So yeah, you don't have to kind of take your hands off the wheel and say, hey, I go from 0 to 90. It's just the way that I am. Well, it may be the way that you are, but there's some things that you can do so that you don't get to 90, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So one of the things that I think is important is for people to understand how their brain and their body function together. And that when you know exactly kind of how your brain and your body function together, it can actually help us to learn. It can help us to retain information, and it can help us to apply new information that we've learned more effectively in our lives. Okay. So as I've said to you, Mary Beth, an analogy for me is when people learn how cholesterol or blood pressure or inflammation affects their heart. So we live in a culture now where this is a normal conversation about things like, you need to choose more vegetables or you need to cut back on processed foods. That it's not just eating better. You actually kind of understand how food works in our body to make us either healthy or not healthy. And it's very similar to understanding how our body works so that we can make wiser choices for our hearts. We can also begin to understand how our brain and our nervous system work together so that we can make better choices for our emotions and our behaviors, right?
Yes, very good point. Why do we think we can take control over our health, but we just think our mental health, we have no control over that? And so, yes, we do, and we can, and we should, and it will, I don't know, it will revolutionize your life. It literally will change the way you function in the world. It's shocking what a few simple things can do. So, Terry, you tell me, because this is your area of expertise, is what is actually happening in our brains when our emotions flare up?
Okay, so now disclaimer up front, right? A neuroscientist could spend years unpacking how all of this works. I mean, the way the Lord has designed our bodies is very intricate, but we're going to keep it really simple today. I think that's the basic thing, is it's just really simple. You don't have to have a PhD in brain science to understand a few key things that can make a difference in terms of how we manage our emotions. So the first thing is understanding a little bit about what goes on in your brain, and that we have a little alarm center in our brain. It's called the amygdala. And we just kind of refer to it as your alarm system. But very simply, this is a very simple way to think about it, is it's constantly scanning our environment. That's its job. Its only job is to always be looking around to see if there's anything that's threatening. Okay. So we've talked before, Mary Beth, like threatening can be a bear on your front porch, but it can also be stress, can be conflict. It can even be harsh words. And our little amygdala notices that as threat, and it wants to fire up and it triggers strong emotional reactions. Now, it does that through a chemical process, and we don't really need to discuss that right now, but that's what happens. So remember, amygdala, that's your alarm center, your alarm system, looking around, always looking for threat. It's going to find threat. It could be conflict, can be harsh words, it could be a look that somebody gives you. Your brain interprets that as a threat, and there's an emotional, strong reaction that we have when that occurs, right? So when that happens, when that amygdala fires and we get that strong emotional reaction, which happens kind of in the middle of our brain here, the part of our brain that's in the front, it's called our prefrontal cortex. That's the wise thinker of our brain. That's the way we can kind of think about it, as the wise part of our brain. And that's the part of our brain that helps us to plan. It's the part that helps us reason. It's the stay calm part of our brain. But what happens is when our amygdala fires, that alarm system goes off, this part of our brain gets really quiet, okay? Gets really quiet, and we don't have as much access to it. So we have a lot of access to our high emotions, but not so much access to our planning and reasoning and our stay calm kind of thing. So when you understand this, that this is kind of a natural process, this is our biology, it's the way God has made us, you can kind of give yourself some grace and understand, ooh, I am reacting because my brain is sensing something in my environment that's it is interpreting as a threat. And my reactions, they're not weaknesses. It's just my brain is trying to protect me, if that makes sense. But it can signal to us, too, that we need to put in place certain things that we can do that can help us calm our alarm system and get back into our rational, clear thinking again. Long story there, but does that kind of make sense?
Yes, that makes perfect sense. And I think, too, you can, and we won't go into this because, you can spend the next 10 years talking about this, but you either can have kind of a shutdown response. Like sometimes when I get triggered, whatever that is, I go to I'm going to bed. I got nothing left. I'm going to bed, covers over my head, shut down. Or right. You can have a hot explosion or a crying or something. So you can kind of do either or, depending on the situation. And again, you're not broken. It's really a pretty cool thing happening that God made for us to protect us. And so for me, I like to say, I like to get curious, because what happens is that amygdala fires off and you start having bodily reactions. You might get sweaty, your breathing increases, your heart rate goes, all of those things, you get tense. And then you start feeling it, sometimes you get hot all over. So at that point, it's the time to go that's a warning sign. What's going on? Something's happening.
Yeah, a good point, Mary Beth, because the truth of the matter is if we become more aware of what's going on in our body, like our physiology, there are actually signals that we get physiologically before we actually even begin to experience the emotions. Because you're right, you could experience more rapid heart rate. I mean, the first thing we do is experience muscle tension, right? So that's actually the first sign that, there's a stressor in my environment. Something in my brain is perceiving something as threat, either capital T threat or small t threat, all threat. Body responds either with a fight, or we're kind of going to flight. We're going to move back, and sometimes we even freeze. But those are all emotional responses, right? Oh. But if we pay attention to what's going on in our body, we can identify even before we experience the extreme emotion what's going to happen. Does that make sense? So in other words, as soon as my muscles begin to tighten, or I begin to see my heart rate is going up, or I'm getting sweaty palms, or whatever might be a stress response that my individual body has, we're all different. We kind of maybe experience things a little differently, but we can begin to do a couple things that will help us relax our muscles, and then in turn, it's going to help us get back into our rational brain, as it were.
Yes, and I think I know I have when I have told people about this, they're like, that sounds too simple. That's never gonna work. I've tried that before. It didn't do
Yeah.
anything for me. Um, but the truth of the matter is you have to, because we're all wired differently, you really do have to find the one that works for you. What works for me, what works for Terry, that could be not something that works for you. And if I say there's one way to do it, there's probably 100,000 different ways. There's every day I read about another technique that you can try to calm yourself. So for me, my favorite go-to is box breathing. I can do it anywhere. I don't really have to think that hard about it. I don't know if people understand what box breathing is, but basically you're going to breathe like a box. So you inhale through your nose for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, exhale through your mouth for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and repeat that 2, 3, 4 times. You will lower your breathing, will regulate, your heart rate will regulate, your muscles will relax. It's magic. And another one that I will share is I love an ice pack on the back of my neck if I have access to it. If I'm at home and I get escalated, I have a little ice ring that I keep in my freezer, and I will just go put that on 5 minutes. Shocking what that does for me.
Yeah, or hold it in your hand if you can't, if you could get 2 ice cubes in your hand if you don't have access to something to put on your neck.
Yeah.
Right. But you make a good point. It's there's a lots of different ways of doing this, but it is to your point. It is, Mary Beth. It's like saying, well, I gave up eating calorie intensive food that one day, but I didn't lose any weight. You have to do anything for an extended period of time. So a lot of people who are very successful at learning how to manage their bodies actually will do box breathing many times throughout the day so that they maintain a regulated, relaxed state, if that makes sense. Or they will do muscle relaxation, like progressive muscle relaxation, maybe starting at their feet while they're even at a desk. They're going to flex their feet and then they're going to relax it. And they're going to flex those muscles or contract those muscles all the way up through their body, just sitting there. And they'll do it several times during the day because practice is really important. And to try to maintain regulation is really important all the time. But when you get in one of those moments where you really need it, you know how to do it. Make sense?
Yes, you do have to practice, and you have to practice when you're not escalated, because what did Terry just say? When your amygdala takes over, logic brain isn't working really well. So you have
Right.
to get it wired and practice so that when you do go, I call it offline, when your brain goes offline, you have to be able to, like, habits go into that.
Right.
It's important to say, like, something's happening. You can say it out loud or you can think it, like, what's going on. I call it getting curious. Name it. Oh, I'm feeling a little anxious, or I'm super ticked off right now, or that made me feel. And then go into, okay, now what am I going to do about it?
I completely, absolutely. And I think the big takeaway for me in these things is to try to maintain a regulated state throughout the day. In other words, I'm not going to wait for I don't want to wait for a bad moment. I want to try to give myself as much bandwidth as I can so that I don't go to 90, so that there's there's 20 and 35 in between. I get to going from 0 to 90, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And when you're having a day, we all have them, but there's just a lot happening, and maybe you didn't get good sleep the night before, or maybe you had some words with your spouse in the morning. So you're already like a little jittery. Things are going to tip you over the edge easier. So especially on those days, you want to make sure that you're doing some box breathing or progressive muscle relaxation or splashing cold water on your face throughout the day.
Right. And I know that people have said oh, I can't do these things because people will notice, or I can't get away from the moment where, I'm right in the moment of a difficult situation with somebody. My amygdala is firing. I'm not in my best place. What can I do? I can't, go splash water on my face in that moment. Well, you might be able to. Sometimes stepping back is the very best thing, right? But if you can't, there are other things that you can do. It's like that peripheral vision kind of thing. I don't, Mary Beth, where you look directly at someone, but you're focusing on what's going on peripherally. You don't even look away from that person. But by focusing on this peripheral thing, what you're trying to do is move from your emotional center back to your prefrontal cortex. And you can do it in the moment of a very anxious situation without anybody knowing, but you are becoming aware of your body and you're doing the things that you need to do to get yourself to be, you're the best person that you want to be, as it were.
Yeah, and you can also like take your tongue and put it to the back of your teeth, to the roof of your mouth, firmly, and that will help. Or make sure your feet are flat on the ground and just really dig your heels into the ground. All of those are good things you can do in the moment that nobody knows what you're doing. And here's the other thing. I don't think it's such a big deal to go, hey, I need a second. You know what? I'm going to be right back. I need a second. I don't think, now, not in every situation, sure, can you do that? But I don't think it's wrong to say, I got to step back a second. I'm going to get back with you.
I agree. And give yourself some time to kind of relax and get into a better frame of mind. And that's really what this is about. And I have to tell you, Mary Beth, I'm just going to go back to what you said at the beginning. To incorporate these things into your life, like eating well, because you're caring for your physical body, but incorporating these kinds of techniques that can help you maintain a regulated state is a great practice for people to do. And it does, there are incredible benefits of doing this, right? So I just want to go back, just as there are benefits of eating healthy life and exercising, there are benefits to learning how to regulate your emotions and to keep yourself in the best regulated state that you can, right?
Yes. And regulating your emotions is not the same thing as stuffing your emotions. So I think we as Christian women get pretty good at, we're not supposed to feel that. Just pray it away.
Right.
That also is not so healthy. So regulating is different than stuffing. So don't get those two confused.
Mary Beth, talk about our masterclass, our free masterclass coming up on October 8th.
Yeah, we're super excited. Terry and I are going to get on. We're going to talk in depth and we're going to do some practical exercises. We're actually going to show them live how to do it. We're going to take some questions so you can get your questions answered. And we're going to do all things managing your emotions in midlife masterclass Wednesday, October 8th at noon, which is Arizona Mountain Standard Time.
Just 1 hour. It's not a big commitment, but we really want to see you and meet you. And Mary Beth and I have some techniques we're going to work through as a group together, and you'll walk away with some real practical applications in your life.
And it's free.
It's
so free. You can't beat the price. It's free. 1 hour of your time. You can do it on your lunch hour. You do have to register, so we're going to have the link for it below here. So make sure you just click on and give us your name and email, and then you will receive an email with the link to the meeting. And we're so looking forward to it. I'm telling you guys, you won't regret it. Super easy stuff. Revolutionize your life, your relationships, and it's amazing.
I agree. Can't wait to see you guys. Hope to see you there.
All right. See you there.